Hello and welcome to SFDC Sessions. My name is Elisa Carroll and I'm editor-in-chief of Henry Magazine. Today is the final episode in our mini-series Summer Sessions, in which we explore designing on three iconic Northern California landscapes: mountain, coast, and vine. And today we discuss designing for wine country in Napa and Sonoma. And we're privileged to have two very special guests. Architect Juancarlos Fernandez, who with partner Jared Denton is the founder of Signum Architecture. And they've of course designed many superb modern wineries and residences. And that includes Odette, Hall, Brand, and of course Cade, wine country and Napa's first gold certified LEED winery. We're also joined by Brad Krefman, the founder of BK Interior Design, who designs beautiful residences throughout the Bay Area and across the country, as well as spaces for wineries like Cornell Vineyards. Please join us for our next session on September 1st, when we kick off our fall programming with The Parisians, a look at French design. Our many thanks, as always, to the San Francisco Design Center and Rhonda Harada for giving us this platform for education, exploration of the world of design. Welcome both of you to SFDC Sessions, and thank you so much for joining us. Brad, it's lovely to have you.
Hi, Elisa. Great to be here.
And Juancarlos, it's lovely to have you as well. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, Lisa. I'm looking forward for this conversation with Brad and you.
Thank you. Well, as you both know, the summer series that we've done on Sessions is really focused on designing sensitively to these iconic Northern California landscapes, so mountain, coast, and vine. And we're really thrilled to have you both today because that's such a big part of your practices, being very conscious of the environments you're designing in. And I wondered, in a setting like wine country, Juancarlos, how do you bring that approach, being mindful of ecology and of the environment to your project?
What I wanted to do is trying to bring some of the something different to the landscape. You know, it's already there's a language here really well done, and we want to play with the natural colors and materials, but in a different way. You know, with a different language, trying to bring a different architecture to the valley and to the surrounding areas in the wine country. And one of the first things I was attracted with is the rusted palette. You know, if you look around here, all the end posts for every vineyard, most of the vineyards are rusted steel tubes, you know. So that's one of the palettes that is just natural here in the valley. And also some of the hills here have that rusted finish. So that was one idea, how to play with this material. Then we start bringing with different projects, different opportunities to start playing with these rusted materials, rusted steel. And that was one of the ways where you start blending, you know. And it wasn't just the materials, but it wasn't the shapes, you know. And one of our latest projects at Progeny, we literally use end posts from the vineyards and we apply them to the building in a random way. And we start to bring in that connection between the landscape and the buildings they were designing.
That's such a beautiful aesthetic continuity that you're obviously hyper aware of. And you know, you've said too, one of the things that you've integrated into your practice is, you know, having designed so many LEED properties, is a very green-centric approach, but you've vetted all of those resources beforehand. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our first experience with LEED certification was when we did Cade, you know, and that was a funny story. We were brought to the project. That was when I was working on layout design. And we, you know, I designed the project. I was the lead designer on the project, and we pretty much completed the design of the schematic design of the project. And when we were done and it was accepted, Gavin Newsom came to us. He's like, "Oh, by the way, it needs to be LEED certified." So we were a little bit like, "Oh wow, what do we need to do?" So then we brought the consultants, and this is in the time when LEED was just coming out. There was no guidelines specific for certification of the winery. And we assessed the project. We saw what we had regarding orientation, natural ventilation, materials, and pretty much we didn't have to change anything. It was just pretty much there, you know. So we didn't design the wine to comply or gain LEED certification. We just designed a way that for us, we thought was gonna be natural. It was gonna be environmental responsible. And then once we put it to the test, we pretty much got all the right approvals and the right combination of materials and elements.
It sounds like it was a success not only because of the sort of the virtuosity of the design, but the holism of the vision for the project, right? So not only were you able to preserve the landscape, but it obviously the color, the palette inspired your design, and that in turn even inspired the design of the label and some of its identity. So it's just beautiful the way that you all created kind of a world together with great values in it. So, you know, Brad, you shared that you had an experience or are working on a property now that also beautifully kind of brings those two things together. You're working on a property that's very full circle, that is dedicated to sort of organic, I believe, or fully organic growing. And you've designed 2 spaces on that site. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I think there's some similarities for sure in hearing Juancarlos talk about either client ethos up in the wine country and why what clients might be bringing as they think about a project, and then similarly how that might translate to aesthetic decisions we make or design decisions we make. So certainly when we were working on Cornell Vineyards, and their whole mentality there is definitely a return back to the land and appreciation of that, and kind of a closed loop circle from having goats and cattle and stuff on the property to a bee farm to a tea garden, and a sustainable organic kind of vineyard approach from the winemaking standpoint. And then they are going to be doing ultimately a bigger project on the site, but from a hospitality standpoint, the first 2 projects which we were engaged with were working within existing structures. And one was a log cabin house that was basically purchased from a Sears and Roebuck catalog decades ago. And the other one is sort of just an off-the-grid house, and keeping a low profile and a low footprint, and kind of recognizing that there's some merit in bringing these somewhat outdated buildings back to a stature that people can enjoy, felt like the right move. And so, we were tasked with spatially and even aesthetically some challenges, because it wasn't necessarily new construction, and wanted to approach the design for those in a way that respected the architecture, but that also was a hard look at the landscape. And Juancarlos talked about getting inspiration from either the manzanita trees or even from the vineyard, the posts at the end of the vineyard vines. And I think that that's so much how we look to design too, and looking at the landscape for either developing the color palette or influencing certain materials that you might engage in. We're actually working right now on a residential project that's the clients are not vineyard based, but they have an olive orchard. So they've got a couple acres of olive trees, and the woods and tones of that have certainly influenced decisions that we've made. And similar from a client ethos standpoint, their whole property runs off solar. So that whole house is going to be powered by solar. The pool is heated by solar, and it helps run the olive orchard too.
How phenomenal to think that there are clients who are coming to these projects and coming to wine country properties with this mindset of stewardship, right? And really wanting to respect the landscape and be shepherds or caretakers of it for future generations. It's really inspiring. And Juancarlos, you also obviously design residences, and one of your projects has become such an icon in wine country called Casa Cielo Azul. I'm not saying that very well, forgive me. But I wondered if you would just introduce us to the vision of that project, which was a property that you did while you were at Lael Design Group, I believe.
The clients, they're pretty sophisticated. They wanted to build nothing too big for them, but they want to create something different. From my background in Mexico, yes, the school that I went, my history teacher was best friends with Luz Barragan. So we went to that kind of a school where it's all about walls colors. I'm actually just looking at the door behind Brad, that the colors looks like a bargain color there. So that was the style that we grew up with, really simple interaction landscape. But the main thing that I learned from that was the use of walls. You use walls to create outdoor spaces. You frame the views, you create these spaces, and you interact interior with exterior, not just through the windows and doors, but also with the walls. You bring the walls from the outside to the inside. So we came with the design, and then in our second meeting, she came and she brought literally this small piece of tile. It's a glass tile, and it was a beautiful deep blue tile. And he's like, I wanted to design my house around this piece of tile. Like, okay.
And just for guests that are watching too, if we could just paint a brief picture for them, right? I'll allow you, please do it, but there's a spectacular kind of soaring blue wall that defines it.
Yeah, when you enter the property, you don't see where you are, you don't see the view, and you turn around and there's a large wall, must be 18 feet tall, 19 feet tall, and then it literally crossed through the house to the other side. And it's pretty simple roof. There's two pitch roofs, just regular galvanized. The whole house is white. It's an off-white with a texture. We worked hard to try to bring that texture. This is a texture that we used to do in Mexico. Even if the wall is white, it gives a lot of depth to it. And then this blue wall, it just cuts through the house, and that's the anchor. So there's certain times of the day, if you're looking up to the sky, and the wall literally blends with the sky, and that's what became the name of Cielo Azul, cielo sky, blue sky. It's surrounded by the same large tree that is around Cade, so it's not sticking out. When you go there, first you cannot see it from anywhere in the valley, and you have to be at the driveway to see the house. Then you cannot see it from anywhere else. So that was important for us. I wouldn't dare to design a house like that if it's just showing in the middle of the hills and everybody drives by to see it. So it's just like the wall itself is really personal. Only the people who drives to the door, to the gate, can see it. And and there was something special for the client.
And it's so integrated, right, as you're saying, and therefore so respectful of the site. We were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago with architect Marianne Chicatans, who was talking about building in Big Sur, and her most recent project, which was a 5,000 square foot home, I believe, which cannot be seen right from the road or hiking grounds, and that's something of which she's very proud, that it's very integrated. Brad, you previously led the design department at one of the most iconic wine country firms back in Gillum. Now, of course, at your own practice, that's a big part of what you do as well. So I wondered if you wouldn't mind sharing from all of your experience some insight with younger designers and how they might think about approaching creating interiors in Napa or Sonoma that really sing with the landscape.
Sure. So, I was fortunate to work for a really amazing architect who, similar to what Juancarlos was talking about, placed a huge amount of emphasis on siting proper buildings, whether that was a winery or a residential project. And even now, whether it's new construction or renovations, you have to look at sight lines and take those into consideration because, the way people's houses sit up on these properties, so much effort is taken to capture that kind of perfect view, which sometimes there's more than one in a certain room. You might have a great access out one window and then an equally compelling one behind you, and then there's still the fireplace. And so we found that furniture sometimes has to be kind of flexible to accommodate a lot of that. We find that we use swivel chairs a lot to allow users and of the house to be able to capture all those views. Similarly, we look at architecture and we do a lot of built-in window seats and day beds that are designed specifically for moments of repose and reclining, but are sited to take in a vista or a view. And I think that a lot of that is to try to look at the interior and understand, or even if it's an exterior furnishing, try to understand how you maximize comfort, but then also pay respect to really what people are looking for up there, which I think is largely a chance to to chill out and take a break and relax. And so, we try to make interiors that conjure up those feelings and make it really easy for our clients to kind of sink into the mode.
Well, they always say, you can't depart from the rules successfully, right, unless you've already mastered them. And, you began your career at the office of Thierry Despont, right, in New York. So you were working on everything from 5-star international hotels to, obviously homes globally. And you had this very rigorous training, right, steeped in classical proportions and detailing. And I wonder, how do you bring that kind of level of sophistication to a wine country home that's meant to be, as you said, a little more relaxed?
Yeah, it was, I had been in New York a decade, and now I've been in the Bay Area. I guess I'm in my 11th year now, so equal. And it took a year or two to shed, French lacquered mahogany for reclaimed wood and silk velvets for Belgian linen. But as you say, like the principles are all the same, right? And I think it's understanding, I think in our mission statement, it's always about designing for context, purpose, and place. And so I think, if you can understand where you are and who you're designing for, and what you're actually designing, the tools in your tool belt, become the same. But, I think that in the wine country, what was sort of taught to me about what was luxurious from Thierry's office in New York kind of got readapted in sort of the, Northern California vernacular. And, that might be heavy use of reclaimed wood or sort of the concrete material that Juancarlos was talking about earlier. And then as far as textiles, I think it's looking at really natural fibers, wools for rugs and, linens for upholstery. We love Sandra Jordan's alpaca product, and that's all coming from Peru. And, it's, I think, a celebration of the natural wonders of the world up in the wine country.
And I wondered if, in closing, I could ask both of you, maybe Brad, starting with you, is there something that's really special for you about designing in wine country in Napa or Sonoma?
Sorry to interrupt you, Elisa. I definitely feel very grateful to have clients who bring work up there. I do find, living in Northern California, my office is in Sausalito and live in Mill Valley, and nature and being part of the landscape here is certainly a huge part of my life outside of BK interior design. And so to be able to kind of stay in touch with that on behalf of our clients as we, create wineries or residences for them up in the wine country feels like a blessing, and definitely like the kind of work that we're happy to get.
So beautifully said. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you for hosting today.
And Juancarlos, how about you? One of the main things for me is the weather. I mean, growing up and being raised in Mexico, the fact that we can come, as Brad mentioned, that we can design these places and bring the outside to the inside, and have these opportunities of the interaction with the outdoors. That's, for me, that's a big part. The weather is a big part, and just starting with our office, all our staff are young. We feed out of that, and we love to share that. We love to share our knowledge. Someone did it with us, as Brad told you. So we want to just pay it back, and not just to people in the field, but also everywhere. For me, also the Hispanic community here is large. So for me to give back to people with my roots is big. So I love to do that, and I get to practice my Spanish and just give back to the community.
Well, I think Wine Country is in amazing hands with both of you. So thank you so much for sharing your work and your insight with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.